There is a dev tool that writes scalable applications from scratch while the developer oversees the implementation. Introducing GPT Pilot once again. You specify what kind of app you want to create, and then GPT Pilot is basically just clarifying questions, gathering details, creating the product and the technical requirements. It's also able to set up the environment and start coding the application by a step-by-step process like you would in real life. You're able to also oversee the development process, which is why many people have used this application many times. It asks you to review it as well as each task is finished, and you're also able to help it when it gets stuck. This way, GPT Pilot is something that acts as a coder assistant while you are basically the lead developer, where you can basically review the code and help it when it's needed. Just take a look at this example, which shows how GPT Pilot is able to create the code for your application. You simply specify the project name, give as much details as you can, and you would then basically have it create the application using GPT Pilot. You just need to specify a couple of details and answers that it asks you, and then it proceeds to process the information and goes to work. You can see over here that it will basically create a chatbot interface for you, and we can see that it keeps on working on it, and you work alongside with GPT Pilot to help create this application. It asks you what you can do to improve it. You can actually give it suggestions, and it will actually code it based off the suggestions that you give it. Now, this is something that we covered on this channel before, and we saw that it's a great application that can help many developers. And if you go to the end of this video, we can see that it's a fully functional working chatbot interface that you can actually deploy on websites. Now, obviously it's not like something that is a fully functional prototype, but it's a good base that you can use and structure into developing something else. This is why we covered GPT Pilot before many times, and it's something that I'm going to cover again because they have many cool updates that we'll be specifying throughout today's video. So stay tuned, and with that thought, let's get straight into it. If you would like to access our private Discord where you can access subscriptions to AI tools for free, you have consulting, you have investment opportunities, collaboration, and so much more, definitely take a look at this link in the description below. If you would like to book a one-on-one with me where you can access my consulting services, where I can help you grow your business or basically give you a lot of different types of solutions with AI, definitely take a look at the calendar link in the description below. Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another YouTube video at the World of AI. In today's video, we're going to take a look at GPT Pilot once again. Now, it has came along quite a bit as they have developed it a little bit more and added many new updates, which is something that we'll take a look at throughout today's video. But this is a development tool that's basically designed to explore the extent of GPT-4. Now, you're able to fully functionally produce real-world applications, and this is the concept that they developed this application towards, as it can leverage AI to automate majority of the coding process, around 95%. But there is still a certain thing that is lacking, and this is something that they're trying to basically solve with this application. Now, this is something that we covered previously where we showcased how you can install it, but I'll briefly just go over it once again in this video so that you can stay up to date with this new installation method. Now, there's a couple prerequisites that you need to have fulfilled before you start installing this. You need to make sure that you have Python 3.9 and above. You need to make sure that you have a GPT 3.5 API key or a GPT 3.4 API key ready on standby. You need to make sure that you have Visual Studio Code as well as Git, which is an application that will help you clone this repository. So once you have these things installed, we can move forward with the installation process. Since my last video on GPT Pilot, we only had one installation method, and that was through locally installing it by cloning the repository and doing all these execution tasks. But there is another way to do so now, and it's way easier with this new update. And this is where you can basically have it installed as an extension within your IDE, which is VS Code. You simply just click on this button over here, click on install, open in VS Code, and it will take you to the extension page where you can basically install it, and you simply just click install and you can have it as an extension. You can see it in action over here. It shows you all the features as you would have if you were to install this locally. Now, if you're going to be installing it by cloning this repo onto your desktop, it's easy to do so. You first start off by going onto the repo link, which I'll leave a link to in the description below. Clone this repository, go into the file. Once you are into the file, you need to create a virtual environment by copying and pasting this into your command prompt. Once that is done, you can then activate the environment, install the dependencies, set your API key, whether that is an API key from OpenAI, Azure, or OpenRouter. Now, then you can move forward by then installing the database if you wanted to have it stored. This is optional, obviously, but you can then simply just type in this command into your command prompt and it will start GPT Pilot. You're also able to do this with GPT Pilot in Docker, and this is another easy method to start this up as well. So how does this actually work? Now, since its last update, they added more steps, which makes the prototypes more intricate and they're better basically generated. Now, it follows this straightforward process to create any sort of app that you wanted to specify. First, you provide the app a name and description, which is something that we saw at the start of the video. You then use the product owner, which is a type of agent system that they have developed within this framework. It's something that classifies requirements through questions and it creates the user stories. It's something that will confirm the accuracy as we go forward into the next step. It's like a fully functional office. You have your programmers, you have different types of managers, as well as product owners. It's that same type of architecture that they implemented within this agent style framework with GPT Pilot. Now, you also have the architecture, and this is the architecture that identifies the technologies that need to be used, and the DevOps agent is someone who ensures that they are basically installed. You can see that there's multiple different steps that are taken. They break down the tasks into different types of development steps. These steps are then split into different areas where you implement the code, ask a human if there's more specifications that need to be added, or you run the code. Now, if you run the code and it fails, you go back and debug it, but if it doesn't, you succeed and go on to the next task. Now, if you zoom in a little bit more so you read this a little bit better, or I can't do that actually, but we can see over here that there is a process where you implement the code. This is where it goes into the next step where you get currently implemented code relevant for the current development step. This is where it goes into the next step where it goes through the folders to find what is relevant for the current development process, goes through different files, and then it finds and filters the LMs to find the code that is required and sends it back, which again moves on to the next step. And as you keep going, it then moves on to the next step where the tech lead is someone that outlines the development tasks and specify how the users can review completion. This is where you go into the testing process, which is showcasing how to implement each task in human related forms, and it manages to translate what the descriptions of each task was, and it optimizes it so that it could be implemented into any sort of workflow. This is where it then goes into this next step where there's a fail and success, and if you succeed, you move on to the next step. If it doesn't, you debug it, and then you then proceed to the next step. This is basically just a simple step-by-step approach that is something that will allow for a better oversight and collaboration throughout the development process using GPT Pilot. Now, just yesterday, we had taken a look at Open Interpreter once again as they had a huge update. Now, the thing with GPT Pilot is that they were working more on the back end than actually releasing a bigger update. They were configuring different files as well as different generation methods so that it can basically provide you high quality generation. Now, in simple terms, you can see that this is a project that is trying to collaborate with developers to build fully functional apps. Now, we see with Open Interpreter or GPT Engineer that they are tools that provide an entire code base at once, but GPT Pilot is something that codes the app in step-by-step processes. It's a way that it mimics how a real developer actually works. This is something that allows for easy debugging as issues arise, and it can be addressed throughout this development process, which is something that we took a look at the previous steps. Now, if GPT Pilot is something that encounters a certain problem in this development process, you can see that the overseeing developers can actually review and fix the code at that exact step so that it doesn't waste many tokens in actually generating what is false and then having to go back to fix that code afterwards. Now, this is something that is designed to handle app development at any scale, and it's a mechanism that is able to filter and show how relevant code is used during each interaction. This is something that they have been working on to make sure that the generation is actually effective when they're basically using GPT Pilot to write the code for whatever the input is. So this is why I wanted to cover it once again, because they have improved this overall system, and I wanted to basically put emphasis on this so that you guys can get some sort of more of a better idea as to why you should use this again. Now let's take a look at this example where GPT Pilot is used to create a timer app. Now you just specify the step-by-step process as to what you want it to create, and it creates this fully functional timer app. Now this is something that you can definitely code alongside with GPT Pilot, which makes this tool so handy. Now this is one great thing why I like GPT Pilot, because it creates proper fully functional prototypes. Now obviously you're not going to get some high-end prototype, but this is still a great foundation that it builds using this app. Whereas if you are to code this manually, you can actually get this done within a couple of hours or minutes. Sorry, it'll take you a couple hours or even like 30 to 40 minutes at least. But in this case, if you use this as a base, you can create it within a couple of seconds. Now that's the great thing about GPT Pilot, as this is a really great tool that collaborates with developers to build these types of prototypes, and which is why I wanted to emphasize once again on this application on this channel. And that is basically it for today's video on GPT Pilot. This is quite an amazing tool that has been upgraded, and this is why I wanted to make this video on GPT Pilot once again. So I'll leave all these links in the description below. Definitely recommend that you check it out. I would also recommend that you check out the Patreon link in the description below so that you can access our private Discord where you can get consulting, you can get various articles, AI resources, you get subscriptions to AI tools for free, and so much more. So with that thought, take a look at the Patreon link in the description below. Make sure you follow us on Twitter so you can stay up to date with the latest AI trends. And lastly, make sure you guys subscribe, turn on notification bell, like this video, and check out our previous videos so you can stay up to date with whatever we are talking about in the AI world. So with that thought, guys, have an amazing day, spread positivity, and I'll see you guys fairly shortly. Peace out, fellas.